Desiderio is one of the scariest videos and the most horrific depiction of illness I've seen on YouTube. It's a video created by Dr. Nowhere, well known for his creation of the bold one, the Locust, and many other terrifying creatures. His designs are really scary, though many of his works go beyond just being surface level scary. The boy in the bath is a good example of this. Sure, it's visually disturbing, but it's a disturbing that means something. The tragic death of a child, and the guilt and trauma that follows such a thing. This is the scariest type of horror in my opinion. Though, The Boy in the Bath has its flaws. It's scary, but it's not Dr. Nowhere's best or scariest design work, or just visuals in general, and it's very on the nose. Desiderio, however, is definitely overall his best design work. Everything is either unnerving to look at or full-blown disturbing, as you'll see, and the audio at times will make you want to rip off your skin. The video focuses on a man named Fran Keel, who is, per the description, a lone hypochondriac that finally confronts the root of his illness. The title, Desiderio, is an Italian or Spanish word, simply meaning desire, yearning, or sorrow. This desire could suggest multiple things, which we'll dive into as we go along, though I think it's important to note that Desiderio is also an old Christian name meant to express a desire or longing for God, which might put a new meaning on the video. As you'll see, a lot of the video is up to interpretation, even though the general meaning is concrete, as every interpretation leads to one road, but enough background. The video starts out with a title card. A white creature pops up and stares at the camera. Then it fades, leaving only the gaze of the creature behind. A house appears, belonging to Fran Keel, the background of which leads me to bring up something interesting, that being Dr. Nowhere's clear inspiration from pop culture, and, especially in this case, Courage the Cowardly Dog. The Bag A farmhouse is the place where just about every episode takes place, and just compare these two. And if that's not enough, just take a look at the town the Courage the Cowardly Dog farmhouse is in. It's something I only recently noticed, and it's a really neat detail if true. Drawing on children's shows many of the viewers likely grew up watching, including me, adds a weird sense of false innocence in my opinion, and it's not the only one. But back to the video. He appears to be trying to relax. Emphasis on trying. When one small drop of soot falls onto his fireplace. This nearly triggers an anxiety attack in Fran. A buzzing is heard in the background. Though he doesn't full-blown panic, this is enough for the creature to introduce itself. Everything about this scene is terrifying. The stomach wound, the creature living in the stomach wound, the creature itself, its excitement, and the close-up on Fran. The creature most likely represents Fran's illness, seeing how it gets excited at the sight of a drop of soot from the chimney. Why would it get excited at this single drop of soot? Because it made Fran paranoid. A buildup of soot can create a major risk for a fire, though interestingly enough, Fran's fireplace doesn't seem to be set up for an actual fireplace. It's barren, so it's something else. A buildup of soot or inhaling soot can indicate poor ventilation, leading to asthma and coughing in the short term, and potential cardiovascular issues in the long term. As you'll see later, this is most likely true. Also, two of the pop culture references can be seen here. Fran's design is very reminiscent of Phineas from Phineas and Ferb. This is supported by a comment hearted by Dr. Nowhere, just a grotesque version, and the close-ups really remind me of a SpongeBob close-up scene. Back to the video. Fran reaches into himself, towards where he keeps his cabinet stocked with medicine, and grabs one of many prescriptions, albendazole, a drug used to treat a parasitic worm infection. Most of the rest of the drugs are either also antiparasitic, like the ivermectin right beside it, as well as the nitazoxanide, or for cardiovascular issues, like the azithromycin and ciprofloxacin, though I find it interesting he's taking anti-parasite drugs. The description does read Fran finally confronts the root of his illness, regardless of how literal or metaphorical the creature is. Fran seems to be doing something about it, even if it's ultimately futile. We also see the creature's full design. Its head and torso are relatively normal, and actually seem to be intentionally similar to Fran's design. Its arms and legs, though, are strange. They seem to be roots, which I believe reveals what the creature truly is. The creature isn't just some illness, but Fran himself, specifically his hypochondria, and despite his efforts, it's deeply rooted in him. There's another interpretation to this, but that'll be more relevant later. takes the pill, and it appears to actually fall into him. Note this for later. Fran glances back towards the fireplace, and another tiny bit of soot drops. He sits down with a lamp cover on his head, which seems to be an effort to control his breathing, but it appears to only makes him over-obsess about it. A panic attack ensues. I find it interesting how the creature rose through the same place the medicine fell. It almost suggests that not only aren't the pills helping, the creature is consuming them. He's feeding his delusion. Also, his hypochondria seems to physically manifest as lungs in the chimney. It confirms he's definitely paranoid the soot may be giving him lung problems, and evidently he's hyper-focused on his breathing. Up to this point, and even upon reaching the end, it's unclear where his hypochondria comes from. Some things may potentially suggest he actually had lung issues in the past, and either he's paranoid of getting them again or he believes he still has them. A lot of the prescriptions were lung-based, so it would make sense if he, say, had lung cancer in the past and has taken a lot of drugs to never get it again, and the rest of these drugs are treating side effects he may or may not have from the prescriptions. And one last hidden detail. Look at his name on the prescriptions. It's normal to go last name first name on prescriptions, but Kill Fran sure sounds a lot like Kill Fran. Interesting little detail. He grabs a chimney brush and goes to clean this soot. But upon inspection, he finds nothing. He leaves and meets the creature in a much larger form, and just a known image flashes very briefly of Fran nearly being pierced by a tree, with his white thing covering his head. And when the creature appears, Fran immediately drops his guard like he's already defeated. The creature then talks to Fran, and thus ensues one of the most disturbing things I've seen on YouTube.
There's a storm coming, Fran. You know they'll never find out what's wrong with you, and even if they did, they're just gonna make you sicker. The doctor just wants to lie to you. They're gonna keep pumping you full of things that fix one problem and then make a worse one. When you get go over there, I'll just try and shove more medicine down your gullet. There's a storm coming, Fran, and you'll be all alone inside your house when it gets here. Every drop on your roof will remind you there's no one to share the comfort with. How does it feel to know that you'll be alone with me? You remember our deal, don't you? You should be grateful to even be here.
There's a lot to unpack here. The soot that fell down the chimney likely wasn't even soot. It was rain, or maybe even just hallucination. 'Tis the nature of hypochondria. Then the image flashes. This could mean two different things, I believe. One, it was just meant to be a scary way of making the creature suddenly appear. But the second, maybe the tree and root symbolism doesn't just mean his illness is rooted deep into him, but maybe an incident happened. Watch this part again.
You remember our deal, don't you? You should be grateful to even be here.
The creature speaks of a deal while a picture of Fran standing over a tree he presumably chopped down is shown, and he says, "You should be grateful to even be here." And right after that, a very quick image of Fran being pierced in the torso by a tree is shown. Keep this in mind. Then a fetus version of Fran, another potential reference by the way, is shown being chopped in half, almost surgically. This is all after the creature fearmongers, whether it's true or not, about doctors and people in the city. Maybe, just maybe, Fran suffered an accident where he was pierced by a tree after cutting it down. He was rushed into emergency surgery where he survived, but had to go on prescription medication post-operation. Then it spiraled from there. Prescriptions can often come with side effects, So maybe he went back to the doctor to treat a side effect of the prescription, or a side effect he read and believed he had, and was given another prescription. Then that prescription had side effects. Then the cycle repeated, thus making him lose his trust in doctors, as
they're just gonna make you sicker.
his face was censored during the scene of him being pierced by a tree, almost like he was a victim of a violent crime. The fetus may represent an innocent version of Fran, before his hypochondria ruined his life. The cut represents a surgical cut, thus the loss of his ordinary life. The deal between Fran and the creature not existing, but being a delusion Fran created in his head to justify survival. The tree being a god that spared him, personified by the creature. This potentially causes a lot of his habits, like staying away from people and self-isolating. The way Fran sees people is very telling.
Get more medicine down your gullet.
There's another theory related to this, which assumes the creature isn't a manifestation of Fran's hypochondria, but the spirit of the tree he cut down. But I think a lot of the imagery wouldn't really make sense if that's the case, and it doesn't really align with the hypochondria, I don't think. You can pause the video if you'd like to read it. Overall, I believe this theory aligns best with a lot of the imagery shown, though there's one other theory that could potentially work, which is much more depressing, but it's best it waits until the end. He sits, tied to an umbilical cord, which appears to be a delusion. He appears sad, as he knows what he should do, what he must do. He pulls the plug, maybe killing him. This ensues the end, which is definitely the most confusing part of the video. I assume he dies here. It would make the most sense with the angel version of Fran sprouting from his upper body. And, like I mentioned at the start of the video, Desiderio can mean a desire for God, and there's really only one way you can meet him. Though regardless, I would consider the ending at least somewhat positive, though kinda dark if he did die. Fran defeats his creature, pulling, ripping him out, pulling the plug potentially. If he didn't die, the angel may just represent the new him, free from his hypochondria. He replants himself and becomes a better version. Though if he died, then I believe the planting represents some sort of rebirth. The implications of this are rather dark though. A part of what was fueling his hypochondria was all the prescription drugs he was taking, so pulling the creature out may have represented completely stopping off his medication, which more likely than not, killed him, as he became dependent. The fetus visual may not actually be a fetus, but just a little Fran, which may represent dependence rather than actually being a fetus. Other than that, I don't know what would be able to kill him, so maybe he didn't actually die. I wanted to save this fun fact for the end of the video. The name Fran means free one. Dr. Nowhere may not have intended this, because it also means from France, but I'd like to believe he did. Another theory, I mentioned earlier, suggests he potentially had a family, and they fell out with some sort of lung disease or cancer, whether it was a wife, kid, parents, or all three, or potentially his wife who was pregnant, which would make sense with a fetus visual. His wife or kid may have died of lung disease or cancer. It would make him paranoid of getting it, leading him to go to the doctor complaining about phantom lung issues that didn't exist. The doctors would prescribe him medication, but it didn't make him any better, actually worse most likely, and thus he distrusted doctors. And because of the death of his wife and kids, he isolated himself from society. The tree visuals of the creature and throughout the video may actually represent a family tree, seeing how lung cancer has a hereditary component. If it was a disease like pneumonia or flu, that could be the reason he self-isolates, since those are things you can catch from other people. Though there's no evidence to really suggest he had a family, the tree pierce theory also feels weird. What actually caused Fran's hypochondria is unknown, and though it's interesting to consider, it's not the main point of the video. Fran kills a man that suffers from hypochondria, a chronic condition he struggles in dealing with. The way Dr. Nowhere portrays it is absolutely terrifying. It's simultaneously visually and audibly horrific, while being based enough in reality to add a relatable component to it. And even if you don't connect with the message, it's still scary. And though it's based around hypochondria, it applies just as well to any chronic illness or condition. You can tell this scrolling through the comments of the video. And that's about it. I've watched this video at least 30 times, so I truly mean it when I say it's the scariest when it comes to depictions. Those panic attack scenes really scared me, or more accurately disturbed me. But unfortunately, disturbingness isn't a word. I'll be waiting eagerly for Dr. Nowhere's next project. I hate to sound like some sort of horror snob, but his works are truly of superb quality. And, yeah, that's about it. Thus ends the story of Friend Keel.